Greetings, everyone. Lisa here. If you go to sleep at night and you feel like you've done something, more than likely you have. We consider this that you work for the army of the Lord or you're working for the bad guys. I suppose either way I'm speaking to you, since you can't keep the bad guys away. These theorems are based on Dolores Cannon's work reading the Bible and my own personal experiences. This channel is specifically for people in the dream time that you are operating the dream time. And what I mean when I say that, when you close your eyes and you do meditation and you can see things like seeing people remote view you, or you view something, or you see visions from out in the universe and space, then you're operating in the dream time, and it is a form of technology. It's a very organic form of a technology. It's not magic, people. Okay, it's God working for the inside out, literally, and He's connecting with you. We all have a piece of the puzzle, and we all have a purpose. Welcome to my new subscriber. I say I got 23. You must be somebody who is important. They only allow important people to get the number up because they can't. If it doesn't show that you push the button, then you'll know what I'm saying is true. But a whole bunch of regular people, they won't let get through. Trust me, my numbers are kept down. Spirit tells me all about it. And then people reach out to me, so I know there's a whole lot more people than 23. But thank you for being here. I appreciate you more than you could possibly know. Today is Thursday, Thors Day, so we're going to talk about the Haarp. I just hope everybody's kind of aware of, we are using the relativistic particles, okay? Some of you who came along with me on I wouldn't know what to call it, okay? And you said, what was that we just experienced? If you were in that group, what you experienced was we're using energy to diffuse, sometimes deform, defective people who want to do wrong things to humanity and the planet. We're here to help heal the planet. But that energy, when we transmute the energy, it doesn't hurt people on the good side of things. Okay? So don't ask me how. We don't know, because we're not really in charge. We're just the instruments, okay? So we're instruments of change. And this book that I'm going to read to you today, Angels Don't Play This Harp, has a lot of information. And if you listen closely, some of the stuff might perk a light bulb in your mind, like relativistic particles did for me. And now I kind of understand what the energy is, what we're using. After all, the Haarp, 1961, I'm going to go through the history a little bit in case you don't know this. Valiant Thor met with Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he gave them the Haarp. And basically the Haarp is meant only for communication purposes between Earth and space. But now it's being used to manipulate weather and do things to the planet Earth that it's not supposed to do. So eventually, the trajectory of that has to change. And the people who think they know what they're doing will, fortunately they're old enough, they will be eradicated or eliminated one way or another, probably by their own personal debauchery. Now, I have one other thing to say that doesn't have to do with this, but I'm really sick of the court trial thing. There's at least 3 famous people who have stolen my identity. Why don't I have my money? Fighting over my money because they tell you quite obviously that they tried to kill me. Now, I've been disenfranchised. This is the only form of communication I really have to the outside world without interference from those 3 entities. So I perceive, and the court case, the men stand up and stroke their penises and say these are vaginas. And then when the women who use energy weapons against me rip their clothes off and show their breasts and tell people they're Lisa and everybody needs to F them, And this court case is actually a fucking sham. I think the judge must enjoy the histrionics in the theater that's going on. Because quite frankly, just the three fucking celebrities by themselves and the one fucking pervert wife who doesn't want people to know that her husband divorced him and made a clone of him. Come on, people, this is so high end. You can't keep this repressed. I want my money. You've disenfranchised me, and my sister is a fucking liar. So please come and give me my money. This court case is now, from this moment forward, it's a fucking sham. And I think the judge who's sitting in judge of it is just enjoying seeing penises and tits and vaginas. As I've heard other people say, this is ludicrous. This is a circus. People have said this is a fucking circus. And yet it goes on and on and on. To what point? 3 women, famous women, with my identity, and I'm here. I'm here in Montana, struggling to survive. They've taken my credit, and this is why I can't hardly get a job. I didn't realize, why can't I get a job? I'm very employable. I'm not a criminal, but they are. They are. They're living in homes in my name, driving cars in my name, and I don't have my money, and you let them. I've seen all 3 of them are serial killers for the, sacrifices for their coven. And yet they walk the street and they still can target energy weapons at me. So is the judge being paid by my sister to keep me down? All they do is show tits and vaginas and penises. So I guess you must enjoy it. And you must enjoy knowing that you're keeping a decent person down. Anyway, this is Thursday. We're going to talk about the Haarp. I'm reading chapter 6. Since, if I come out without my wig on, oh, poor Lisa, she's so fucking ugly, right? That's what I hear. Then if I put the wig on, I'm a blue-wigged freak. So which is it, people? Anyway, chapter 6. This is the energy we're trying to transmute and change planet Earth. We're here to help heal the planet, Super Soldier. Just know that to be true. Chapter 6. Northern Exposure. At an age of about 50 years, Claire Zicker took time for assessment and was satisfied as he looked around in the early 1990s. He had worked his way through data management jobs to a position as accountant for a multinational oil company, ARCO. The good life included hosting friends in a 3,000 square foot house on the bluff outside Anchorage with a wall of windows overlooking Cook Inlet, and watching beluga whales romp in the inlet or standing beside his wife Barbara in companionable silence, contemplating a panoramic sunset over a distant mountain range. Barbara was content with her own range of interests, from collecting art to studying medical anthropology. That the Zickers would become activists in an eclectic group of environmentalists was too foreign a possibility to consider. A visit from a friend in October of 1993 changed their serene existence. However, Jim, a pilot with Alaska Airlines, came over one night and mentioned that at a pilots' meeting he had heard about a government project called Haarp that was going up in the bush northeast of Anchorage. Jim knew Claire was a ham radio operator who spent a couple of nights a week closeted with his shortwave equipment, and that he ran 3 ham nets. Jim handed him a flyer which said Haarp was the acronym chosen by military agencies to name their project, which would include a large array of antennae on the ground beaming 1 billion watts of electromagnetic power at radio frequencies up through the atmosphere. It would be the biggest zapper in the world. Even if it didn't get beyond the megawatt, millions of watts stage, such a transmitter was certainly to interfere with communications in the bush. People in remote areas of Alaska rely on radios for life or death calls, such as for medevac aircraft to save a child's life. Jim wondered what electronic interference from Haarp could do to onboard systems on jets, which he pilots. Claire listened to his worries about aircraft that are controlled by remote operations instead of having direct cable lever rudders and other equipment. Such a craft could be more susceptible to a big blast of energy that might lock it into position or override the remote control. Reassurances from the Federal Aviation Administration reported in the media were not the last words as far as pilots were concerned. Now, if you remember in the 1980s, if you're old enough to remember that, there were a lot of airplane crashes in the 1980s. That night, when Zucker sat down in front of his shortwave apparatus and went on the air, he asked other ham radio operators if they had heard about the Haarp. About the Haarp transmitter. They hadn't heard but wanted to learn about the biggest ionospheric heater in the world. They learned that similar antennae in other countries had beamed electromagnetic power into high-level experiments for years. But Haarp would be the most powerful, zapping the upper atmosphere with an unprecedented power level of energetic particles. Engineering Mother Nature, the planetary environment, would become a new ball game. Some hams lived in areas where Haarp public relations people were holding public briefings, and these operators reported back on the air. The Pentagon had been shopping for a site because Haarp's radio interference would be too strong to locate near military facilities. Then why do you think we want this in our own backyards? He asked some individuals whose communities were considered as possible sites. When the choice was made to build it near Gakona, a hamlet about 140 miles north of Prince William Sound, some of the on-air chatter died down. While he still had time to sit in front of a 2-story fireplace for a leisurely read, Claire had finished a book titled Miles from Nowhere. It was about people living in the lower 48 states in places where there were fewer than 2 people per square mile. The military had, of course, chosen such areas to do its hazardous testing, such as nuclear blasts. Gakona reminds me of that Miles from Nowhere theme, he told Barbara. Few people around to complain. Although he sympathized with bush dwellers, concerned about how close they were to electromagnetic radiations from Haarp, his main question was more global. What all is this thing going to do to the upper atmosphere? Haarp's public relations sheet described it as pure scientific research on the aurora borealis and research on the ionosphere's ability to affect communications. The U.S. Air Force and Navy were paying for the project, but they said it was not a weapons system. Later, Claire Zucker would learn that the technology definitely could be used for military purposes. He wondered what else they weren't telling the taxpayer about Haarp. His training as an accountant led him to ask about the checks and balances in the situation. Haarp planners would choreograph experiments on the crucial envelope of charged particles within which circled the planet, the ionosphere, which protects Earth's inhabitants like a spherical umbrella from cosmic radiation. What independent scientists, not in any way funded by the military, were monitoring this project? He could find none. Especially missing were biologists and independent atmospheric physicists, if there are any such independents. Basically, he concluded the military is going to give the ionosphere a big kick and see what happens. But don't ask anybody on planet Earth if that was okay. My biggest worry is what they're going to do by punching holes in the ionosphere or heating it. It's going to have reactions that they don't know how to predict. Look at the past. They set off nuclear explosions in the atmosphere before they figured out, hey, that's going to cause problems, and changed the wind patterns for years. Barber shared his view and expressed it with an Alaskan common sense observation. They're like boys playing with a sharp stick, finding a sleeping bear and poking it in the butt to see what's going to happen. Clara ordered a copy of the Haarp Environmental Impact Statements, EIS, from which he took names of others who had questioned Haarp. He used that first mailing list to contact people who wanted to learn more about it. And he tried to get a group going in Anchorage. Near the end of 1993, the Zickers hosted a couple of meetings in their home. In the first meeting, as the assembled Alaskans expressed their views, Barbara realized she and Claire had opened their doors to people they probably would not have met in any social situation. It was a bit of a shock. From the comfort of an upper middle class home and removed from subsistence level rural or urban alternative lifestyles, the Zickers world had turned fairly smoothly. She joked about being a bleeding heart liberal herself, and Claire being more middle of the road in his views. These guests, however, ran the gamut of extremes, from let's shoot the government people to aliens are involved in this. And they were right, but the aliens weren't involved in doing the wrong stuff, people. Sometimes it felt like she was in a bad mystery novel. Previously, neither of the Zickers had run into fringe political views about, for a mild example, black budget projects, which not even legislators know about. Barbara later reflected that, for me, it was an exercise in social restraint, which isn't my gift. But I grew to really accept these people for what they were, and worked with them. There were an amazing range of views, but in the end I could see that was a real plus. An amazing range of views, but in the end I could see that was a real plus. By the next meeting, more people were involved in seriously trying to get answers from Haarp, about Haarp. One of the people pointed out that the environmental impact statement sort of poo-pooed or played down the reactions in the ionosphere. Someone else at the meeting looked at the possible effect, which would be more visible to Alaskans, game birds. The effect on migrating waterfowl was also played down in the EIS. Someone mentioned, although to the credit of the government scientists, they had admitted, we really don't know what the effect will be. Now, I want to say an experience here. I worked at the Linda Hall Library of Science and Technology as a page in college, and I got to read the written book by the person, I can't remember his name, in Sacagawea, the people who went across the country before it was a country, and Sacagawea led them. And it was the person who drew and talked about how the Indians dressed and what they did and blah, 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 blah. And it was like this continent was a wealth of resources. There was lots of animals, and he said the sky was black with birds no matter where you went. Now, one time in the 1970s, I and a friend, Jay Wilson, we went and we did photography. It was my sophomore year in college, and we drove all around the city, and we went to abandoned places. And one of the abandoned places was a bridge. And when we got on that bridge, this was in July, there was dead birds everywhere on that bridge. Now, I didn't get sick, and he didn't get sick. You know, I like to say avian flu. Now, I have to wonder if massive amounts of birds, haven't been killed due to this ionospheric heating. Just saying, okay? The first mailing list of around 15 grew to 150 who were sent updated information. A Haarp fact sheet decision documents from the Air Force, and then the most valuable in terms of information. The request for proposal documents, which Zicker's accounting experience, he could understand it. Haarp documents they received at that time generally restricted discussion of military plans to the category. Enhanced C3 systems, which seem to mean keeping track of where submarines are and what might be happening in battle. That's the ELF waves they're using for that, Claire pointed out. Extremely low frequency waves, which people in the lower 48 states fought against because of health risks. But we're up here miles from nowhere, and no one is going to react to it. If no one else was going to resist the intrusive technology, he would have to do what he could. Who else would stand up? He ran into a wall of apathy. Local people around the site had been led to view Haarp as a source of a few gravel hauling or site maintenance jobs. A reporter at the Anchorage newspaper contributed to the No Haarp library by passing on information he had been sent. However, his bosses apparently did not support his wish to write an in-depth article about the project. After Claire Zucker dropped off an information packet at the city's television station, he never got a response. A grassroots environmental group showed interest but didn't do anything. After the No Haarp group sent information about waterfowl versus Haarp to the headquarters of the Audubon Society, the society did not reply. The Zickers spent about $3,000 on telephone bills and mailings while opposing Haarp. Meanwhile, one of the guys in the bush encouraged other activists to write a couple of thousand words about Haarp, and Claire gave it a try. He wrote an article titled Monster in the Wilderness and sent it to Gar Smith in San Francisco, editor of Earth Island Journal. A technical consultant told the journal that the technology would be impossible. That stalled the printing of the article until another tireless networker, Remy Chevalier of Connecticut, urged Gar to reconsider. I'm not answering that. Claire sent more information, and in the end, the published co-authored article was included in the most underreported news of 1994 list for the book Project Censored. And there's a notation. Project Censored, 4 walls, 8 windows, New York, 1995. Since he worked for ARCO and its subsidiaries, APTI, had the contract to build Haarp, Claire filed an internal conflict of interest statement in early 1994 so that his employers would know that he was working against a project that another arm of the company was working on. Early in his involvement, Claire became frustrated by being unable to get what he felt were straight answers from the government about Haarp. Barbara eventually grew discouraged too. I feel we're just like a mosquito buzzing around, treated like we're not worth paying attention to. As it turned out, the Zickers' sacrifices did play a major role, keeping the resistance alive until the No Haarp momentum grew stronger in 1995, when the media had noted its Project Censored status. When Claire retired from his job with ARCO during company cutbacks, and he and Barbara sold their house to go traveling through the lower 48, the guys in the bush carried on. It was March 1995. And that's where this chapter ends. Chapter 7 is titled In the Wilderness, and we will do that next time. And just so you know, Haarp technology is used in these energy weapons that are being used on innocent people who are targeted individuals. And this book is no longer in print for a reason. Anyway, peace out, everybody. Remember, I think you're amazing, and I love some of you more than others. Be well now. Bye.